The story so far is this. Have you ever felt like you're missing a crucial piece of the puzzle in your relationship? I've been with my boyfriend, Jake, for over a year now, and despite all the promises and heartfelt moments, I've never once met his family. It's not like they're living across the world or in some remote village. They're right here in the same city. I can't help but wonder, what's holding him back? Is it me, or is there something deeper at play? This situation has left me puzzled, anxious, and increasingly desperate for answers. I'm a 29-year-old woman living in a bustling city where the skyline is as dynamic as the lives we lead. I've been dating Jake, who's 31, for over a year. We're both professionals in our respective fields. I'm an interior designer, and he's a software developer. We've shared countless moments, from spontaneous weekend getaways to cozy nights binge-watching our favorite shows. The issue of not meeting his family wasn't always at the forefront of my mind. In the early stages of our relationship, everything felt new and exciting, with both of us immersed in discovering each other's worlds. But as time progressed, the absence of any family introductions became increasingly noticeable. At first, I brushed it off, rationalizing that maybe he was just waiting for the right time. However, as months rolled by, and as I shared my family with him, the lack of reciprocity began to weigh on me. I started to question if there was something about me that he found lapping or unworthy of meeting his family. Were there cultural expectations or family dynamics that I wasn't privy to? My initial feelings of curiosity slowly turned into a simmering anxiety, creating a silent tension in our otherwise harmonious relationship. I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions: frustration, insecurity, and a nagging fear of the unknown. All these feelings began to cloud the love and trust we've built. Each family gathering he attended alone was a reminder of the invisible barrier standing between us, leaving me to wonder if this was a puzzle I could ever complete. As the months drifted by, the unease over not meeting Jake's family began to cast longer shadows over our relationship. It was a conversation I'd intended to have, but the timing never seemed right, or maybe I was just too afraid of the answers. My concerns became more pronounced during the holiday season, a time typically reserved for family gatherings and shared traditions. Jake would speak of his family's plans in detail, yet there was no mention of me joining them. The first real curveball hit when Jake received a call from his younger sister one evening. She was having some trouble and needed him to come over right away. He left in a hurry, leaving me with a vague explanation and a growing sense of exclusion. It wasn't just the abruptness of his departure. It was the realization that I was excluded from a significant part of his life. This unexpected event exacerbated the situation, making it clear that there was a part of Jake's world I wasn't meant to enter. In the days following that night, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being an outsider. My mind was a whirlwind of questions. Did his family know about me? If they did, why was I kept at arm's length? The stress began to gnaw at me, affecting my focus at work and my interactions with friends. It felt like a silent chasm had opened between us, and with each unanswered question, it grew wider. A particularly poignant moment came when my best friend invited both of us to her wedding. I had naively assumed that attending such events together was a given, but when Jake hesitated to RSVP, citing a potential family commitment, a new wave of frustration hit me. It was as though his family was a phantom presence, always there but never within my grasp. The emotional toll was palpable. I found myself torn between wanting to confront Jake and fearing that doing so might unravel our relationship. Nights were spent tossing and turning, my mind replaying conversations and trying to read between the lines. Was I overreacting, or was there something genuinely amiss? These questions hung over me like a storm cloud, turning moments that should have been filled with joy into a mental tug of war. I could sense Jake's growing discomfort too, a reflection of my inner turmoil. His reluctance to discuss the issue only fueled my anxiety, making me question the very foundation of our relationship. Was our love strong enough to bridge this divide, or was I destined to remain an outsider in his world? Determined to address the growing chasm between us, I decided to take the first step by initiating a candid conversation with Jake. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, I mustered the courage to voice my concerns. I gently expressed how important it was for me to meet his family and be included in that aspect of his life. To my relief, Jake listened intently, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of discomfort. He assured me that his family knew about me and that he was just waiting for the right moment to introduce us. Yet his words, though soothing on the surface, lacked the conviction I had hoped for. Not one to leave matters unresolved, I sought advice from close friends. They suggested that perhaps Jake had his reasons and encouraged me to be patient and open to understanding his perspective. Taking their advice to heart, I tried to approach the situation with empathy, attempting to piece together any underlying issues Jake might be facing. However, despite my best efforts to remain supportive and patient, the situation took an unexpected turn when Jake's birthday came around. I had planned a small surprise gathering with a few of his close friends and hoped his family might join us. But as the evening unfolded, it became clear that his family wouldn't be attending. Jake's reaction to my invitation seemed tense, and he quickly changed the subject whenever his family was mentioned. This was the second curveball that left me reeling. I began to question whether there was something more serious at play. Was there a conflict with his family, or did they disapprove of our relationship? I felt like I was navigating an emotional minefield, unsure of which step might trigger an explosion of revelations. Despite these setbacks, I continued to try different approaches to bridge the gap. I suggested casual meetups or even just a coffee with one of his family members, hoping that a smaller, less formal setting might ease any tension. But each suggestion was met with vague promises and no concrete plans. The obstacles seemed insurmountable, with Jake's evasiveness adding to my growing frustration. I realized that while I was trying to solve the issue, it was equally important for Jake to meet me halfway. As I grappled with this realization, I found myself at a crossroads. Should I continue to push for answers, or accept that some things might remain beyond my control? The persistent issue of not meeting Jake's family started to seep into every facet of my life, casting a long shadow over my emotional well-being. Emotionally, I was caught in a whirlwind of feelings: confusion, frustration, and an aching sense of inadequacy. Each day felt like a balancing act, trying to maintain a facade of normalcy while internally grappling with the gnawing doubts about our relationship. Socially, the situation began to isolate me. Friends who once envied our seemingly perfect relationship now sensed the strain. Invitations to social gatherings were met with my hesitance to answer questions about our future. The repeated, "Why haven't you met his family yet?" was a loaded inquiry that I had no easy answer for, forcing me to either dodge the question or provide vague explanations that left me feeling even more isolated. The tension also started to spill over into our interactions. Moments that should have been simple and joyful, like planning a weekend getaway or even choosing a movie to watch, became charged with unspoken tension. I noticed that our conversations became more superficial, avoiding deeper discussions that might lead back to the elephant in the room. The laughter and easy banter we once shared felt strained, replaced by an awkward silence that neither of us knew how to break. My work, once a refuge where I could channel my creativity, suffered too. Designing spaces that reflected happiness and harmony became ironically difficult when my own life felt dissonant. Colleagues noticed my distracted demeanor, and the usual compliments on my designs dwindled, replaced by concerned inquiries about my well-being. Internally, I waged a constant battle between hope and despair. Hope that Jake would finally open up and provide the clarity I desperately needed, and despair that perhaps this issue was a symptom of a larger, unsolvable problem. Nights were spent overthinking, my mind cycling through scenarios of confrontation, reconciliation, or even walking away from it all. This unresolved tension left me feeling like I was living in limbo, unable to fully commit to the future because the present was so uncertain. The sense of hopelessness was suffocating at times, leading to moments of doubt about my own self-worth and the strength of our bond. As days turned into weeks, I realized that I needed to find a way forward, whether that meant finding peace with the unknown or making the difficult decision to prioritize my own emotional health. As I sat alone in my apartment, the weight of the unresolved issue with Jake settled heavily on my shoulders. I had exhausted all the reasonable avenues to resolve the situation: heartfelt conversations, seeking advice from friends, even making compromises that I hoped would ease the tension. Yet here I was, still feeling like an outsider in a relationship that should have felt like home. With every passing day, the idea of taking more drastic measures crept further into my thoughts. I found myself contemplating the possibility of a breakup, a decision that seemed both terrifying and oddly liberating. The thought of walking away from someone I deeply cared about was daunting, yet the idea of continuing to live in uncertainty felt equally unbearable. I imagined the long-term consequences of such a choice, how it would affect not just my relationship with Jake, but also my social circle, my sense of identity, and my future. There was a fear of social stigma, of having to explain why a seemingly perfect relationship fell apart over something that might appear trivial to outsiders. Would I be judged for prioritizing my emotional health over the relationship? Moreover, there was the emotional toll to consider. Breaking up would mean losing not just a partner, but a confidant, a friend, someone who had been part of my daily life for over a year. Could I handle the emptiness that would follow, the void that Jake's absence would leave? I felt torn, trapped between the fear of action and the fear of stagnation. What if taking drastic measures meant losing something valuable forever? Yet, what if staying meant losing myself in the process? These questions haunted my waking hours, and as I lay awake at night, I realized that something had to change. Whether it was finding peace with the status quo or making a difficult decision, I knew I couldn't remain in limbo forever. Reflecting on this tumultuous journey, I find myself at a crossroads, emotionally drained yet still holding on to a sliver of hope. I've poured my heart into trying to understand and bridge the gap between Jake and me, only to find myself facing the same unanswered questions and a growing sense of disconnect. The prospect of a breakup looms large, yet the thought of leaving behind everything we've built together is incredibly daunting. I'm reaching out to this community because I feel lost and unsure of my next steps. Have any of you faced a similar situation where a partner kept you distant from their family? How did you navigate the delicate balance between patience and self-respect? I'm looking for advice, or perhaps a new perspective that I haven't considered. Maybe there's an approach I haven't tried, or a way to communicate that could finally bring clarity. Part of me acknowledges that this post might simply be an outlet to vent my frustrations, a way to share the burden that has become too heavy to carry alone. Yet, I hold on to the hope that someone out there has faced and overcome a similar challenge, and that their experience could guide me towards a resolution. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. Any advice, insight, or even just words of support would be deeply appreciated as I navigate this confusing chapter in my life. TLDR, I'm a 29-year-old woman whose boyfriend of over a year hasn't introduced me to his family. Despite efforts to address it, I'm seeking advice on how to proceed.